We've suspected that the Wagner Group's future has been up for debate since the insurrection in June. Whilst Prigozhin's death isn't particularly surprising, what is surprising is that he managed to stay alive for such a long time post-insurrection attempt, especially after making such a public challenge to Putin's regime, which Putin himself publicly condemned as an act of terrorism.
Is it too early to jump to conclusions as to what happened to him and those on board the plane? What can we piece together so far?
Yeah, so it is quite early to really start speculating about what's happened. What we do know is that Prigozhin had a lot of enemies, particularly within the Kremlin, and throughout especially the last 8 months, he's painted a very red target on his back. It is looking increasingly likely that this was a targeted assassination of Prigozhin and key figures of his Wagner Group hierarchy. There have been unconfirmed reports suggesting that the plane was shot down by a Russian air missile. So it would be no surprise, really, if this was a Putin-sanctioned assassination.
Who were some of those key players? Who was on the plane and where were they headed?
Yeah, certainly. So the plane was flying between Moscow and St. Petersburg. So in the crash, and all 10 people on board the plane have died. There were 3 crew members, and the remaining 7 were Prigozhin, Dmitry Utkin, who played a key role in the evolution of Wagner and gave Wagner its name. It was Utkin's call sign. Sergei Proputsin, who were all quite big actors in the Wagner's operations. Another figure was Valery Chikalov, who played a role between Prigozhin's official business ventures and the Wagner Group's operations in different countries across Africa and Syria. The remaining individuals on board have been associated with Wagner, and it's looking likely that they were providing security for Prigozhin.
What do you make of the timing of it all? The news comes on the day that a senior Russian general was reportedly sacked from the Russian Air Force.
Yeah, certainly. So the timing, again, it's quite a surprise. We've really thought that something like this is coming. Prigozhin had made a lot of enemies, and we were really waiting for news like this. But it is looking like the Putin regime might be trying to consolidate their power, make sure that security threats are being dealt with. Sergei Surovkin, who was the general sacked from the Air Force, had been suspected of being sympathetic to the Wagner Group, particularly around the June insurrection. He disappeared following allegations that he'd been sympathetic. So I dare say that what's happened here is that Putin's purging threats.
How many followers did Yevgeny Prigozhin have, and how are they responding to this news, do you think? Is it likely that they'll rebel against what's happened?
He had quite a significant following. He had a lot of sympathisers amongst Putin critics and nationalist groups. Whether or not, with the remaining resources that Wagner has and the influence that it's organised, there may be a violent reaction. We just don't really know at this stage, but there will definitely be a lot of quite frustrated and angry people as this news continues to flow out.
Is the group significantly weakened now, do you think, or can they still pose a big threat to Vladimir Putin?
I definitely think that Prigozhin's death signifies a shifting point, and at this stage, I imagine that the remaining members of the group are a bit concerned and confused about what the next steps will be. Realistically, whether or not this is a monumental shift in what's about to happen, whether or not Prigozhin is replaced by another figurehead, whether or not the group is absorbed into another group, that remains to be seen. But I do think that as it stands today, the group's probably quite weakened.
Is there anyone who could potentially take over the leading role in the Wagner Group?
Yeah, certainly. So there have actually been rumours for a few weeks that 2 different private military outfits are looking to expand into Africa that are based within Russia. They're closer to the Putin military and security apparatus, especially given Wagner's distancing from what has happened over the last 8 months in particular. The one that jumps out to me at this stage is the PMC outfit convoy. And it's looking like it's managed by an very high-ranking Wagner member, Konstantin Pikalov, who was extremely active in the Central African Republic for several years. he would look like quite an attractive contender if he has the established relationships and experience in country.
And just finally, Isabella, what has the international response been so far? And what does this all mean for the war in Ukraine?
The international response has been interesting and unsurprising. Not a lot of people are shocked by this news. Joe Biden commented that he was unsurprised and then suggested that Putin probably had a hand in the assassination. France has made similar declarations, as well as a number of other key international figures. What this means for the war in Ukraine is another thing. Wagner's been slowly withdrawing from Ukraine for about 2 months now. They haven't been particularly active in the fight. And their lack of presence has had little impact on the trajectory of the war. So realistically, the war will continue with the absence of Wagner. Their operations in Africa at this stage look like they're business as usual. So we really just need to watch what happens and look to those key countries where they are very active, like Mali and the Central African Republic, and they may be telling us what's about to happen next.
A lot more research to come. Isabella Currie from the Trobe University, thanks so much.
Thank you.